So I know visually it looks and feels a bit different. Our camera died, so we're on the webcam today. Not really important pertaining to the video. However, Democracy Now! Had on one of the more renowned Holocaust and genocide scholars in America, Omer Bartov, as he helped shed light on why Israel's actions do clearly meet the standard for genocide, something that has been long discussed and debated on the online political discourse circles, but that there is consensus on among scholars and, human rights organizations as well, which I think speaks volumes to whose side of the conversation has more substance.
My view changed really around May 2024 with the decision of the IDF, despite opposition from the United States, to invade Rafah, the last area of the Gaza Strip that had not been taken over. There were about 1 million Palestinians there who had already been displaced several times, and the IDF displaced them one more time to the beach area, the Mawasi area, without any proper infrastructure at all, into tent cities along the beach. And then proceeded to demolish much of Rafah.
Another crucial point here that was raised by a doctor I interviewed who was in Gaza was that on this Mawasi beach that these refugees were moved to, they had just 121 toilets for over 500,000 civilians. Effectively, this means they had one toilet for every 4,000 people. I mean, it's really cruel and astonishing stuff. And as he mentioned, this is after these people had been displaced multiple times already, moved to various safe zones just for those to be bombed or deemed not safe anymore and to have to move again, where Rafah was supposed to be the last one. I mean, Biden himself said, this is a strong red line. If Rafah was bombed, we're going to stop sending them aid. And I mean, they bombed Rafah. They killed dozens of civilians in that one attack, including babies. They then condensed the Palestinians on the Mawasi beach and have since bombed, I think it's 7, maybe 6, one of the 2 more safe zones since then. And guess who's still sending them aid?
Statements made at the very beginning in October 7th, 8th, 9th by Israeli leaders, political and military leaders with executive authority, who were saying that they wanted to flatten Gaza, destroy it, that there were no people who were uninvolved, and so forth. And it appeared at that point that there was actually a systematic attempt to make Gaza uninhabitable, as well as to destroy all institutions that make it possible for a group to sustain itself, not only physically, but also culturally, its identity, its collective memory, which meant systematic destruction of universities, of schools, of mosques, of museums, and of course of housing and infrastructure.
I just love that the genocide scholar has reaffirmed the argument that I've made since the beginning of this. And it's why a large part of this, I think, comes down to people just not really understanding what genocide is. It's something it's not focused on in school. It's like brushed on maybe, and even then, how well do most people listen in school, right? And they think that it has to be this like Hitler style character that's carrying out this mass destruction of a race and trying to eradicate them all, when genocide isn't that. It's closer to a Holocaust, not exactly that either, but genocide is more about intent to erase, right? In whole or in part. And that's an important distinction, especially with the world today, with how alliances are, with how social media is, et cetera. I don't think in whole will ever be possible anymore. I think genocide will always be carried out in part from now on. And I also think it'll also be more cultural than physical, which is what we're seeing play out in Gaza, right? Over $300 million in cultural damages in Gaza, culturally significant buildings and architecture being destroyed, mosques, schools, the destruction of hospitals, the onset of famine and disease. I don't know what else you would call this. War is mutual. And this is taking one attack that happened 14 months ago and trying to use it as the justification of why you're going to eradicate a group of people off this world.
This was a plan that was being sold by retired Israeli general, Giora Eiland, on Israeli TV for months before. And the idea is to force the entire population out through military action and through starvation, through depriving that population of food and water. And much of the population has indeed been removed. This last attack on the hospital you were discussing earlier is one additional phase in this attempt to make this entire area empty of its population. This has been called by the former Israeli chief of staff and minister of defense, who is himself a political hawk, on the Israeli media, an operation of ethnic cleansing. But ethnic cleansing means that you move people from a place where you don't want them, a particular ethnic group, to another place where they can be at least secure of those attacks. But of course, in Gaza, when you move people from one place to another to so-called safe zones, they are not safe there, and they do come increasingly and constantly, again, under attack. So that's what makes this so-called ethnic cleansing actually part of a genocidal operation.
This is what makes this argument so weird. These people are making defenses for Israel that Israel isn't making for itself. Like, this is something you also see with MAGA for Trump, right? But with Israel, it's like, yeah, we are ethnically cleansing them. Like, that's what they're saying. And it's like, yeah, we do need to wipe Gaza off the map. We need to send them back to the dark ages. There is no innocent person in Gaza, including the children. Like, these are all real quotes, by the way, from high-ranking members in the Israeli government, which stands to show proof of intent, and it's mixed with their actions of pretty clear-cut war crimes and ethnic cleansing happening. And the near, again, unanimous consensus among genocide scholars and human rights organizations that this is a genocide, right? Despite this, the more Zionist-sided mind of the argument will still just be like, no, no, like that's enough. Like that's their defense. And I think it speaks to a larger issue. And I think it's this discrediting of brown people that is kind of inherent in discourse, where inherently we're not trusted, right? The burden of proof is always much higher. Like this unconscious bias, I still exists in many people. I know as a black man, I don't make an allegation that I can't absolutely back up with proof. And I'm sure for Palestinians, it's that to a much more massive degree. I mean, think about it. Over 100,000 have been just injured from the rubble. There's tens of thousands, could be over 100,000 lost under the rubble. That, I mean, by all conventional assumptions, measurements, they're dead. You know, like these people probably aren't alive, a small percent of them, if any of them. But despite that, you still have people questioning even the 45,000 confirmed death numbers, despite all the outside confirmations that have been made on it, despite the fact that reporting from Gaza Health Ministry has pretty typically been considered reliable, right? Like, I don't understand like how or why this is what the world has come to in the face of an atrocity this size. And it's something that has changed the way that I will view the world forever, I think.